What do you want to move on to?
Whatever. We could do Code Orange. I've got Code Orange sitting here in front of me.
Right, okay, let's just do Code Orange then. So,
This is another band we covered on the last podcast when we reviewed the single and title track Underneath. That song was released way back in January, so ever since I heard that, I've been champing at the bit to hear Code Orange's fourth studio album Underneath, the highly anticipated follow-up to Forever. Code Orange are a hardcore punk band from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but to simply call them a hardcore band would be doing them a disservice. They combine the punishing extreme vocals of hardcore with the menacing riffing and soloing of metal and the brooding and moody tones of industrial music, all the while throwing in plenty of clean melodic vocals too. But they also use an incredibly diverse palette of electronics, including samples and glitches, which all add extra depth and layers to their unique sound. Another major component of this is the stop-start staccato nature of their sound. They don't often dwell on a certain thing for too long, and as a result there's a ton of diversity on here. There's a real flow to this album too, where each track merges seamlessly into the next. With all the changes in timing and direction and styles, it's sometimes difficult to know where one track ends and the next track begins. It's unfortunate that the album was released early on in the COVID-19 outbreak in the West, just as venues were beginning to be shut down, so unfortunately they had to cancel their launch shows in their hometown of Pittsburgh. However, they were one of the first bands to pull together a live stream show at extremely short notice, which they called The Last Ones Left in Fear of the End, and it was live streamed on Twitch. It was genuinely really excellent, mixing the weird sci-fi visuals that you see on the album artwork and videos with a genuinely incredible live performance. It was quite odd to hear no audience participation. At one point they even turned the camera around to show the completely empty venue. They're a fucking great live band though, and I urge anyone who's interested to check out The Last Ones Left, which is now available on YouTube. So, like I said, I've been excitedly anticipating the release of this album, and honestly, it hasn't failed to deliver on the promise of the early singles. I fucking love it. So, on that note, I'm keen to hear what your thoughts are on Underneath, Grant.
I would kind of agree with what you've said. I've kind of started off my notes just as a wee kind of reminder to myself saying, how would you describe their sound? I think online, as you said, they've described as kind of metalcore, post-hardcore, new metal, sludge metal, whatever the fuck that is, post-hardcore. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I think when we discussed them previously, because obviously it was Underneath was the single that you gave me to review, I talked about having a bit of a kind of industrial sound, and there's certainly elements of that peppered throughout the album. I mean, there's instances where it actually sounds as if they're using actual bits of machinery throughout the course of the album. I think it's on track number 4, You and You Alone. It sounds as if they're like using a kind of chain or something like that.
I think it's actually a drum sound, but it sounds like pulling a chain through some kind of industrial equipment. But I think it is just a straight up drum sound on the top of the cymbals or something.
Really?
Yeah, I was trying to think of what it sounds like, and you illustrated it perfectly there with that sort of chain pulling action that you did.
Well, I mean, I've written that, I've kind of concluded that part of my notes by saying that I don't think you can really fit Code Orange into any one genre, and I think that their kind of material has to be judged in their own merit. The album itself, I'm not a massive fan. I'm not a massive metalhead. As I've just said, I've almost kind of contradicted myself there by saying that you can't fit them into any one genre, and then I've just went on to say that I'm not a massive metalhead.
You say that, but broadly speaking, they are a metal band.
Broadly speaking, yeah, they could be described as a metal band, and I suppose I'm not a massive fan of the genre, but there were certainly elements of it that I really enjoyed. Like I said, the album itself, a bit of a mixed bag for me. The single Underneath, songs such as Who I Am, Sulphur Surrounding, Autumn and Carbine, I thought they were brilliant. Like, songs that I've went back and listened to quite a lot and really can't get enough of, to be honest. And I think these are songs where the female vocalist, or who I assume is the female vocalist, Reba Myers, kind of clean vocals are kind of more prevalent. And as I said previously when we were kind of discussing Underneath, I quite like that juxtaposition between what I suppose you could describe as her clean vocals and the other singer, Jamie Morgan's I don't know how you describe it. I've described it as kind of screamo vocals, that kind of guttural metal sound. I quite enjoy when you've kind of got both of those in play. I'm not that big a fan of the songs where it's just him that's kind of really singing. That's not to say that there aren't elements that I really enjoy. As we said previously, there's kind of a lot of texture to the songs. Some of the riffs are phenomenal. You just can't help but kind of nod your head along to and kind of really get into. I think they're quite good at doing a lot of kind of atmospheric type stuff as well. They're quite moody. I suppose it's worth mentioning the opening track, Deeper Than Before, which I suppose is more of a prelude or introduction, kind of similar to things we've seen in other albums that we've reviewed in the past, like Black Future's NNN, Never Not Nothing, 2019 album. I've described it as being quite quite unnerving, intensely atmospheric. Then you've got kind of just under the kind of 30-second mark, you hear this kind of girl's voice saying, "Let's take a good look at you," which we see peppered throughout the course of the album as a kind of theme that runs throughout the course of the album on a few of the songs. And it feels like it's straight up from a horror movie.
Yeah, it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And there are lots of terrifying moments on this album, but I mean that in a good way.
Aye.
But Deeper Than Before definitely sets the tone perfectly. That "let's take a good look at you" line is both innocent and menacing, then followed by booming horn sounds that sound like they're coming from the depths of hell. That leads straight into the pounding drum intro and growling riffs of Swallowing the Rabbit Whole, which is one of my favourite songs on the album. It's just brutal, and those rough, serrated vocal screams from frontman Jamie Morgan would give an in-prime Corey Taylor a run for his money. In fact, Code Orange previously released an awesome track called The Hunt, which features Corey Taylor, and there's an impressive back and forth between the two vocalists on that track. That song came out around the time Slipknot announced they were recording a new album, which eventually turned out to be We Are Not Your Kind. That was released last year, and by the way, it's an absolute beast. But I digress. There's plenty to love on Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, but the insanely heavy staccato riff breakdown that starts around the 2-minute 50 mark, where weird electronic crashes and bursts combine with the guitars to create an insanely catchy headbanging moment. There's moments like that all over the album, but that's one of the very best. The next track, In Fear, opens with crunching riffs and a mad electronic crackle and a buzz that almost sounds like a swarm of deadly wasps. That sound keeps coming back, and again it sort of combines with the guitars to make this awesome groove that's just perfect to lose your shit to. And the riff that kicks in around the 2-minute 30 mark has an immense guitar tone. There is also this mad pause at the start of the song where everything just goes completely silent for a split second, like the sound's been deleted out of the track or something. It's weird, but I think it's a really clever trick that just adds an extra bit of something to the song. They actually pull this off live, and I've really no idea how they do it. There's a lot of weird things like that where they add in samples and sounds and glitches, and there was a lot going on, but I think they've thought very carefully about where everything goes and how it fits with the song, rather than just chucking things in and hoping it sounds good. You mentioned You and You Alone before, which opens like a nightmare full of horrifying glitching screams before bursting into a crushing groove with drums that, like you illustrated before, sound like some sort of industrial lifting crane. Who I Am is the most melodic track so far, with its Korn-inspired squealing, whining guitar intro underpinning guitarist and vocalist Reba Meyer's moody vocals. Cold Metal places a growling monster. The last minute of the song is the best moment though. Drilling drum attacks, guitar shrieks, vocal streams and growls all mixing to fantastic effect. I'd say the best track on the album is Sulphur Surrounding though.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And yeah, it really is fantastic and definitely my favourite song on the album. It demonstrates everything that's great about this record. While I do really like Jamie's vocals, I think that Reba's vocals on this track in particular are incredible. The soaring, clean yet hard-edged vocals on the chorus, I know you want it, you're glued to me so easy, sulphur surrounding, it puts you away. are just so impressive and infectious every time they come around. Layering the vocal screams under the cleans at perfunctory moments also creates a kind of otherworldly sound. There's that creepy girl sample again, Let's Take a Good Look at You, and I really like how they infuse the creepy acoustic guitar with massive fuzzed up bursts of electric guitar and the guitar solos that mimic the vocal melodies. It's just a perfect song. There are a couple of other standout tracks for me in particular. I feel like The Easy Way is Code Orange's attempt at a Nine Inch Nails song with the throbbing electronics, guitar stabs and radio static vocals. It's probably going to be the most commercially appealing track in terms of the mainstream, as that Don't Wanna Know Who You Really Are chorus is a real earworm. It helps that it's a fucking banger too, and it has this great cool-off moment in the middle with sort of evil multi-track vocals and what sounds like a buzzing fly. Erasure opens with a shotgun blast of intensity and has an insane hardcore bounce. If you're into spin kicks, that's the one for you. And the last one's Left has a fist-pumping opening with gang vocals singing the song title. It's a great moment that returns multiple times throughout, alongside this Rammstein-esque stampeding riff. I feel like I've talked for ages here, but that's pretty much my thoughts on the album.
So what would you rate this album at?
I feel like
I fucking love this album. It's fucking brilliant, and I'm always reluctant to give 10 out of 10 scores to albums, but I feel like I have done a little bit willy-nilly in terms of like, you know, I mean, we gave Ghosteen a 10 because, well, it just is.
Absolutely.
I've obviously given Black Futures and Viagra Boys a 10, I think, too. And as much as I love those albums, I think this is better. So it's like, I can't not give this a 10.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
But I mean,
I think the more I listen to this, the more I get out of it. It's just fucking awesome. And you've never heard anything like this.
No, that is true. And I mean, it's interesting that you're saying that, you know, that kind of industrial machinery sound that we kind of discussed earlier on the fourth track of the album, where I said it sounded as if they were actually pulling a chain. Like, if that genuinely is just a straight up guitar sound, I mean, that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal, man. Like, I mean, that just demonstrates their kind of, I don't know, musical prowess. Is that a word? Does that make sense? Musical prowess. Yeah, fuck it, that makes sense. Musical prowess. I mean, that is phenomenal. It's difficult for me. I mean, I couldn't give it a 10 out of 10. That's because, you know, I'm not a massive fan of the genre. You know, as we said, broadly speaking, they probably would be considered a kind of metal band. I've given it a 7 out of 10, though, which is, I would say, is a pretty good rating. And I certainly think fans of the genre will love it, will get a lot out of it. And maybe if I do go back to it, because I certainly will go back to listening to Who I Am, Sulphur Surrounding, Underneath, and maybe if I do go back, listen to them a bit more often, and maybe it'll, I don't know, not force me, but make me want to kind of listen to a bit more of the album, and you never know, maybe on more listens it'll grow a bit more on me, who knows?
yeah, I think
The point is that this is still like, despite those songs you reeled off, like those are more accessible songs. This is very much still an extremely heavy album. I think the band themselves have come out and said, we're trying to become a massive band and reach a wider audience. And I think this album does that, but without losing its extreme roots. Because for every Sulphur Surrounding or Underneath, there's a Swallowing the Rabbit Whole or a Cold Metal Place. And, you know, there's as much brutality on here, if not more, in fact, as there is melody. So I think this album probably does have a fairly broad appeal, at least more so than your average hardcore metal band, but it's still very much a niche product. I'm a big fan of hardcore and metal, and I do like some extreme music, but not as extreme as some people do. So I think that's why this has spoken to me in particular, because it's a good middle ground between being extremely heavy and being a bit more accessible. I can see why fans of more extreme music could be put off by it, and I can also see why fans of less extreme music would be put off by it because perhaps it's too heavy.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is totally fair.
Okay. But it's going into the head Scratchcast Hall of Fame, as it were. It's going to be up there.
I think it has to be for me because
listening to their previous album Forever, which is perhaps I think there's more heavy moments on that, so the heavier side of this album is more present on Forever, and I enjoyed Forever quite a bit. It was album of the year for loads of heavy music outlets the year it came out, and I can see why, but I fucking love this because I haven't heard anything quite like it. And yeah, there's elements of that on Forever, so I was perhaps more prepared for it than you. But yeah, there's nothing that sounds like this, so it has to be a 10, I think.
Cool. Okay.
So that was Underneath by Code Orange.